Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this poncho here. I don't have a lot of room to lay it out, but the one that you just saw in the picture there in the beginning. It's got puff stitches and double crochet. It's actually really easy to make. And it's really pretty. I think it turned out really nice. Remember, you can always adjust the size and make it as long or as short as you want. And you can also add fringe or, whatever you want to add on the bottom if you choose to. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Okay, for this project, I am using a Lion Brand Comfy Cotton. I really like this yarn. It's a nice yarn. It's becoming one of my favorites. Now it is a lightweight 3. It does, I think, appear to have the thickness of a 4-weight, but it is considered still a lightweight 3. So you could use a lightweight 3, or I think a 4-weight would also work for this poncho if you don't have to use this yarn. So any yarn, any 4-weight or light 3-weight will work. There's 392 yards in this cake, and I went through almost 3 cakes. So you're going to need 3, and if you want to put add fringe or anything on it, you're going to need a 4th cake. Now this is a 50% cotton, 50% polyester blend. Of course, you don't have to use that. Acrylic would work fine, or even wool. The color that I've chosen is called Chai Latte, and I want to take a minute to ask you not to forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you check the description box of this video or any of my videos, you'll see a auto subscribe link. If you just click on that link, you'll automatically be subscribed, and then you'll never miss any of my tutorials or any of my updates. And then I'm going to be using a size J, which is a 6mm crochet hook. Okay, you want to start out with a chain of 80. Now once you get your chain of 80 made, you want to follow it down without twisting your chain. And we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch to form one large ring. So we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch here. Like that. And now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to go right back into the where we just slip stitched in single crochet. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around the chain. Just like that. So 1 single all the way around until we get back to the beginning. Okay, I'm coming to the end of round 1, and you should have 80 stitches now. And what you want to do to end round 1 is slip stitch into your first single crochet. Not this chain 1, but the first single crochet. Go ahead and slip stitch right into that. Just like that. Now we're going to start round 2. Now this is a 4-point poncho, so there'll be 4 points. And every point is going to be worked the exact same on every row. So we're just going to start off right here with the chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So we're going to do our first point right here into this very first stitch that we just slip stitched into. So what we're going to do is go right into it, and we're going to work 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and then go back into the same stitch and work 2 more double crochets. So that's what the point consists of. 2 doubles, a chain 2, and 2 doubles all into the same stitch, just like that. Now I want to work 1 double crochet into the next 19 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way until you get to 19. Okay, I've done 19 double crochets in a row. Now my next stitch is going to be my second point. So into the next stitch, I'm going to work 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2, and then I'm going to chain 2, and work 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. Just like that, and that is our second point. So again, we're going to repeat that. We're going to work 1 double crochet into the next 19 stitches. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way until you get to 19. Okay, I've done my 19 double crochets again. So the next stitch is going to be a point. So we're going to put 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And that's going to create our third point. And now we're going to repeat the same thing again. 1 double crochet into the next 19 stitches. Just like this until you get to 19 again. Okay, I've done my 19 stitches again. And one more time, we're going to do the 4th point. So in the next stitch, we put our 2 doubles and chain 2 and 2 more doubles. And that will complete all 4 points. And you should have 19 stitches that remain. So you want to go ahead and put 1 double crochet in the remaining 19 stitches. Okay, I just did my last 19 stitches. So I want to end round 2 by slip stitching into the first double crochet of the first point. And now you should have a total of 92 stitches. And if you look at it, it'll be like a square, and that's what it's supposed to look like. So we'll go ahead and we'll start round 3 by slip stitching 2 times to our first chain 2 space. So go ahead and slip stitch just once and twice. Now we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. Now we're going to work our point right here into this chain 2 space. So we're going to go ahead and work 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and 2 more doubles into that chain 2 space, and that'll complete our first point of this round, just like that. Now we're going to work a row of puff stitches. So we're going to start off by chaining 1, and then we're going to skip 1 stitch, and we're going to work our puff stitch into the next. So now how we work the puff stitches, we yarn over, and remember we're skipping 1, so you go into the next stitch and draw up a loop. Now you want to do that 3 times, so that counted as 1. So again, you yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, that's 2 times. Again, yarn over, same stitch again, draw up a loop, that's 3 times. You'll have 7 loops that remain on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 7, and then chain 1 to lock that puff stitch. And that's how we do the puffs. So again, we're going to skip 1 stitch and puff into the next. So I'm going to yarn over, skip that 1 stitch, and go into the next and draw up a loop. Remember, we want to do that 3 times, and that counted as our first one. So again, yarn over, same stitch, draw up a loop. That's 2. One more time, yarn over, same stitch, draw up a loop. It's 3 times. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, go through all 7 loops, and chain 1 to lock that puff. And that's what we're going to repeat until we get to our first or our next chain 2 space over here. So skip 1 stitch and puff into the next. Seven loops, yarn over and go through all 7 and chain 1. Skip 1 stitch, puff into the next. Just like that. And that's what we're going to repeat until we get to our next chain 2 space. Skip chain 1, skip 1, puff into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, puff. Okay, I'm coming to the end. I did a puff and I chained 1 and I have 1 stitch left to skip, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip that, and then I'm going to do my point right here in this chain 2 space. I'm going to work 2 doubles in my chain 2 and 2 more doubles all through that chain space. And then I'm going to repeat what I just did before. So I'm going to start with the chain 1, skip 1, and puff into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, and puff into the next. And I'm just going to keep repeating this until I get to my next chain 2 space. Okay, I did my last puff. I chained 1. I have 1 stitch left to skip before my next point. So I'm just going to go right into the chain 2 space and work my 2 doubles. A chain of 2 and 2 more doubles. Now I'm just going to keep repeating what we've been doing the whole way around until I get back to my starting point. So I'll start again by chaining 1, skipping 1, and puff into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, puff into the next. And I'm going to repeat that until I get to my next point. And there I'll do my 2 doubles, chain 2, 2 doubles, and then I'll just repeat again with the puffs until I get back to my starting point. Okay, I'm coming to the end of round 3. Now, it looks a little funny here at the end because this is where we did our slip stitching, but you just kind of got to watch and be careful where you put your stitches. Now, I did a puff stitch and I chained 1. I'm going to skip this stitch, and right here is a stitch that we need to puff in. So right in the top of that slip stitch. Might be a little hard to get into, but we can just kind of go in the side of the stitch, I guess. And then you need to chain 1. And there's actually this last stitch you'll skip, and then we'll end with a slip stitch into our first double crochet of our first point. If you just look right there, you'll be able to see what to do. It just looks a little funny because we slip stitch and all the stitches are kind of run together, but you'll be able to get it. It's pretty easy to see once you figure it out. Okay, that ends round 3, and now you should have a total of, let's see, 44 puff stitches all the way around. So you'll have 11 in between each of the points. Okay, now we're going to start round 4, and round 4 and 5 are the repeats for the whole pattern. So it's just a 2-row repeat. So this is round 4. It starts the repeat. So we're going to slip stitch 2 times to our first chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 1. Okay, now we're going to work our point right here into the first chain 2 space. So we're going to work 2 doubles, a chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets. Now we're going to work 1 double into the next double crochet. And then we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip this double and double crochet into the next chain space. And then we're going to chain 1, skip the puff, double crochet into the next chain space. Chain 1, skip the puff, double crochet into the next chain space. And this is what we're going to repeat until we get to our next point. Chain 1, skip the puff, double into the next chain space, chain 1, skip this puff, double into the next chain space, just like that until we get over here to our next chain 2 space. Okay, I'm coming to my first point. I double crocheted into this last chain space and I chained 1. Now I'm going to skip this double crochet and double crochet into the next. Now I'm not going to chain 1 after that. I'm going to go directly into the point and work my 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets. Just like that. Now I'm going to kind of repeat the same thing again. So I'm going to start off with 1 double crochet into the first stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1, skip that stitch, the next stitch, and double crochet into the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip the puff, double crochet into the next chain 1 space, chain 1, skip the puff, double crochet into the next chain 1 space, and I'm going to repeat this until I get to my next chain 2 space or my next point. Just go ahead and finish out since I'm almost there. Okay, getting ready to double crochet into this last chain 1 space, chain 1, skip this stitch, double crochet into this last stitch before the point. Now we do not chain 1 after that one. We go directly into the chain 2 space and work our point. So it's 2 doubles, chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets. Now we're just going to keep repeating what we've been doing until we get back to our starting point. So we start off again with 1 double into the very first stitch, chain 1, skip this stitch and double crochet into the next chain space, chain 1, skip the puff, double crochet into the next chain space, and we're just going to repeat this until we get back around to our starting point. Okay, I'm coming to the end of round 4. I just did double crochet, I chained 1. Now I'm going to double crochet in this chain space, chain 1. Now this is where we slip stitch, so it looks kind of awkward. You skip this stitch and double crochet into the last stitch here. It's kind of on top of a slip stitch, but just like that. And then we go ahead, we don't chain 1 after that. We end with a slip stitch into our first double crochet. That will end round 4. You should have a total of 52 of the chain 1 spaces. You'll have 13 chain 1 spaces in between each point. So now we're going to start round 5 by slip stitching 2 times to our first chain 2 space and chain 1. Now we'll go ahead and put our point here. We'll start off with 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets. Now we're going to work our puff stitch row. So we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and puff into the next. So I chained one, skip one, and puff into the next, which will actually be the chain space. Chain one, skip the double, and you puff into the next chain space. Chain one, skip the double, puff into the next chain space. Now we're going to repeat this until we get to our next point. Just like that. Okay, I'm coming up to my next point. I just did my puff in this chain. The last chain space before the point, I chained one. So I want to skip this stitch and puff into the next. And then I'm going to chain one, skip this stitch, and now I'm going to go directly into my point, my chain two space, and work my two doubles. My chain two, and two more doubles. Just like that. Now I'm going to repeat again. I'm going to start off by chaining one, skipping one, puff into the next, chain one, skip one, and then puff into the chain one space. Chain one, skip the double, puff into the next chain one space. And that's what I'm going to repeat all the way around. Do this until I get to my next chain two space, and then I'll work my two doubles, chain two, two doubles, into my next chain two space, and then I'll just repeat, keep doing a puff row until I get back to the beginning. Okay, I'm coming to the end of row 5, and remember it's a little difficult to see right here because of the slip stitches, but I puffed in my last chain, I chained one, I want to skip one, and then I'll puff right here in the middle of these 3 stitches. There's 3 stitches here. It's hard to get into the slip stitch, but go ahead and puff into that. And then you chain one, and then you end round 5 by slip stitching into the first double crochet of your first point, just like that. Okay, now you'll have a total of 60 puffs. You'll have 15 in between each of your points. Now it's just a repeat of rows 4 and 5. So the next row will be where we do the double crochet, chain one, double crochet, chain one, and then we repeat the puff stitch row, and then the double crochet, chain one space, all the way until we get to poncho as long as we want it to be. So it's pretty easy. Repeats rows 4 and 5. Now every time you do a chain space row, it will have 16 more chain spaces than the row before, the chain space row before it. And every time you do a puff stitch row, it will have 16 more puffs than the puff stitch row before it. So we had 44 puffs on our first row, and now we have 60. So the next puff stitch row will have 76 puffs. So every time you do a puff stitch row, it'll have 16 more puffs than the previous puff stitch row. And every time you do a chain space row, it'll have 16 more chain spaces than the previous chain stitch row. So I hope that makes sense. So now we're just going to keep repeating rows 4 and 5 till you get your poncho as long as you want it to be. Okay, I've done a total of 32 rounds, and that is starting from the very first round of single crochet that we did. So starting as that one is number 1, I did a total of 32. Now remember, you can always make yours as long or as short as you want, so you can continue this for as long as you want. And all you do after you finish, you get it as long as you want. We just slip stitch there into that first double crochet, and then we just tie that off. I went ahead and you want to end though, I'm sorry, on a double crochet row. Well, that's how I ended. So then you go ahead and tie that off. You can hide that tail. One more thing I'm going to do is clean up the edge of the neck. So you want to find the back of your poncho, back side. It's kind of big, so right here is my back side. This is where I started. See it right here. So you just want to start your yarn there, and we're just going to go around the edge of the neck with a row of single crochet just to clean it up a bit. So start your yarn just right around the back somewhere. You know, there's not really any specific stitch, but I'm going to try to start right here. Kind of where the V was, so somewhere around there. Pull your yarn through, chain 1. Now you go back into that very same stitch that you started in and single crochet. And now we're going to work around, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around. And this is just making the neck look a little bit neater. Just like that. See how it cleans that up nicely? So go all the way around the whole piece, all the way around the neck until you get right back over here to where you started. 1 single crochet in every stitch, the top there. Okay, once you make it all the way around and you made it back to your starting point, I'm going to go ahead and end with a slip stitch into my first single crochet. Not that chain 1, but that first single crochet. Okay, and you should have 80 single crochets here when you make it back to the beginning. Now if you don't, that's okay. Just somewhere around there is close. I don't think anybody's going to be counting your single crochets here at the top of your poncho. If they are, then they got way too much time on their hands. So, but as long as you get somewhere close to 80, it doesn't have to be exact. Tie this off, and then hide that tail, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Now if you want to put fringe on here, you are more than welcome to do so. But that's all there is to it. It's so big I can't hardly put it up here, but I will put a picture here at the end of the video and at the beginning so you can see it all laid out. But I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe with that auto subscribe link that's in the description box that I told you about in the beginning. And if you make this or anything else, I'd really love to see a picture of it. You can always post a picture on my Bagoday Crochet Facebook page. I'll put a link to that also below in the description box. And until next time, have a good day.